shocking. I know, right? When was the last time I played any kind of Civ game on this channel, back when I had like less than 500 subscribers? It's been a while. And although I never really got into Civ 6 the same way I did with Civ 5 back when I was younger, I figured Civ 7's coming out, trailer looked somewhat interesting, why not give the 4X genre another chance? And it seems the people over at 2K somehow read my mind because they reached out to me to give me a preview copy of Civ 7. Now, to be honest, I have not had the game for too long. This is barely more than a first impression. I did play about 2 test runs. One went a lot better than the other one. As you can see, for example, I have leveled Pachacuti here to level 3. There's a whole new system that encourages you to play the same leaders multiple times because you do get these things called mementos. You unlock them by leveling up the leaders. So for example, if I got Pachacuti to level 5, I'd get this. We also have this one if I get him to level 9, which is pretty good. And just looking at the ones that I've unlocked so far, I feel like these are actually going to be some of the biggest impact on the entire game. So even though I should actually put these on to give myself an advantage, I'm not going to make this experience as close as yours is going to be when you first boot up the game. And for the sake of playing something I'm familiar with, just to make this easy, I might as well go with Pachacuti a second time. I don't mind at all. Like with some previous titles, we have the choice to start with whatever age we want. There are 3 in Civ 7, and I haven't personally met anybody who prefers to start after the first age, so of course we'll just go with this. Now, what's unique about Civ 7 though is that even though we're playing Pachacuti, which of course you would assume means we're playing the Incas, that's actually not the case. We get to choose from these antiquity civs. You do get some recommendations, some of them are thematic, some of them are strategic. As we progress from age to age, we get to decide which other civilizations we become, either through whatever civilization you picked previously or through your leader. So for example, because we have Pachacuti, we can unlock the Inca in the exploration age. I haven't played enough of the game to tell you which ones are good or bad, but we'll go with the Mississippians, because why not? This is the setup we'll go with. I think this is normal difficulty. You know, Civ has weird names for the difficulties, but I think that's the one. And let me actually increase the strength of the disaster. It didn't seem too bad last time. That should be about good. Right, looks like I left the tutorials on. We can just skip through this. Loading into the map here, of course, the tutorial is going to encourage me to set down a settlement pretty much wherever we spawn in. Now, I actually have no qualms about that because I'm not trying to, like, you know, do the best run ever here. I can see that we do have a pretty decent spawn when it comes to trying to play, you know, eventually getting to the Incans and then moving on from that, because having mountain ranges is actually really good for us. 2 things, of course, to keep in mind when we're playing a Civ game. Cities do have a maximum range for its tiles. In this case, it is 3 tiles. Not sure if it expands later on. I've only really played the first age. And most interestingly is that we're playing with like Civ 5 rules when it comes to settling on coasts to have a port. Didn't play much Civ 6, but what I do remember from it is that you can build like a harbor district, so you don't need to settle on coasts in Civ 6. But Civ 7, we're bringing it back to Civ 5. You do need to settle on a coast in order to construct ships. So kind of important to keep that in mind. We're going to pick the first thing to build. Of course, we're going to go with a scout. Just like most Civ titles, we're going to go look around on the map, see if we can find some basically loot boxes. Picking up our first tech, we'll go with animal husbandry. Should boost this pasture that I'm planning to get pretty soon. And we'll go ahead and pop out another scout real quick. We get our first choice at expanding the population, which gives us our pick of which tile to expand to. Is the start of the game. I think we're going to want some food, so we'll grab this one. And you'll see, of course, it expands the borders of the city to the surrounding tiles. Pretty important to note, you do direct your own expansion for these cities. We can put down another population, so I think this time we'll go with something that gives us production. When we build over top of this, not only will we get the tile yields, but we'll also get a resource, wool. It gives us +2 production and +2 happiness, so that's pretty nice. We also just found ourselves an encampment. Basically a loot box, you get to pick what you want out of it. In this case, we can lose a turn of gold to get 40 food in the capital, or we can get 50 gold. 40 is pretty good. It should allow us to actually gain a new population next turn, so I think that's worth it. For a third tile, we'll go with this one for a little bit more food, and we'll get to work on a granary for some more. Buildings in Civ 7 are a little bit different. You have to place them in an urban district. The capital automatically starts as one. We could create new ones adjacent to the capital, but since the granary doesn't give any adjacency bonuses, there isn't anywhere that it really should be over anywhere else. We're gonna keep it in the capital. Oh, look at this. This is perfect. So we've met one of our first city-states, or I guess they're called independent powers. Some of them start hostile, so for example, we did find a scout from a different one. Little red outline showing that they are indeed hostile. In this case, scouts actually cannot fight each other, so it's not a big deal. We can just kind of like shuffle past them. There are a few interactions we might get to later on, but for now, just know that they kind of replace the barbarians that have existed in previous Civ games. After finishing the first technology, the game will try to give you some advice on what you want to end up doing over the course of the campaign. So it kind of depends on the playstyle that you're going for, each one for a different victory, of course. In this case, because of our leader in civilization, we're very much geared towards having it an economic focus. So I will pick the advisor, even though they don't really do that much. They do give you some advice, that tell you a few things that would be useful to do, and like, they introduce you to legacies and stuff. These actually are pretty important though. Not only does it help you sort of understand how far along you are towards reaching one of these victories, they give you these little tasks that you want to accomplish over the course of an age. For example, for economic, you want to assign 20 resources to your settlements, whether they be towns or cities. We'll get to that at some point. This stuff only really matters at the end of this age, so while you should keep it in the back of your mind, it's not like it's super pressing most of the time. Unfortunately, you can't queue up technologies, but I would like to go for pottery, then sailing, then eventually writing, I think. We did find another little loot box here. Thing is, it's a bit awkward because I don't think we've been given access to the cultural research yet, so I don't know if that's actually going to do anything, but we also have a lot of production in the capital, so we are going to take the top option. There we go, we've revealed the new civics tree and all that stuff. Thing is, it looks to me like we might not have actually gotten that bonus, but it is what it is. I will go with mysticism because I do like to get that pantheon early on. So far, it seems like the government type only affects the kinds of things you can get during celebrations. So for example, if we go oligarchy, we get to choose between either getting plus 30% production towards constructing buildings or plus 20% food for 10 turns. You don't get both, you only get to pick one of these. It does for the most part kind of depend on your playstyle. I'll just go with oligarchy. Now that we've picked our government, we do need to pick a policy. We start off with one slot. I think you do get more, but only from celebrations from what I've seen. So to start with, we'll grab a little bit more science and production. The capital city is looking nice, and we did just finish building that granary, so we'll go ahead with a new settler. Let's see what we have here. Oh, pretty much the same thing as before, but our other option would be food instead. 30 food isn't bad, but I do want that 30 culture. We also have one over here, which, what do you know? Another 50 happiness and 30 culture. Could get 45 influence, but I find that it's not going to be too difficult. It kind of depends on who's around us, but I don't think we necessarily need that. We can continue to expand the city. I think we'll go ahead with more production over here. Improving this tile will give us gypsum, which is better in literally any city other than the capital, but nonetheless a good start because it gives us access to this tile as well. And because we gained all that happiness, we can choose our celebration. Since I don't plan to build any more buildings for the next little bit, I will go for more food for the next 10 turns. And because we have a celebration, we get to pick another social policy. We do have another loot box over here, one which maybe we should not have gone to yet. It seems like we don't have the choice to just move on. We will have to pick one of these, and well, we don't have much of a choice, so we'll take the 20 food. We've just encountered our first other civilization, Isabella of Egypt. We do get to choose our first impression. They do cost influence if you're going for something other than neutral. And you might think, why would I ever want to do a hostile greeting? But the thing is, wars in Civ 7 do kind of require a breakdown of relations first. So spending that 20 influence to get a hostile relationship to start with will make it faster and easier for you to go to war. In this case, I think we're not trying to be too hostile. The plus 20 relationship is, I think, permanent, so we might as well be nice. Fortunately, while Egypt does have some military bonuses, they are mostly defensive, so I don't think we have to worry too much about dealing with Isabella. She probably will not be too hostile towards us. Unless, of course, I do decide to put a natural wonder within my borders, and then she will be immediately hostile towards us. As for the diplomatic interactions, there's nothing that we actually want to do yet, so we can just move on. And, interestingly, it seems like she's immediately going for a wonder. Okay, sounds good, Isabella. Right, every now and then we get these narrative choices. I'm not entirely sure why or when they pop up. These are basically like mini quests, or sometimes they just give you rewards. So we could get 25 science, or we could train 3 infantry and get 50 culture, or we could train a merchant and get 100 happiness towards the next celebration. We do want to train a merchant anyway. We're playing as the Mississippians, which means we do have a unique merchant unit. Seeing as we're done with pottery, no, for some reason I thought you needed sailing to also get writing, but I guess we just need pottery. So in that case, we'll go ahead and grab that. Now you might have noticed some civics and some technologies also have these things called masteries. Usually they'll give you new wonders, and the thing about Civ 7 is that there are just an absurd number of wonders in the game. So every single one of these buildings you see that are like the square outline, all of these are wonders. But anyway, we'll pick up some discipline and we'll go for the code of laws afterwards. And of course, since we have finished mysticism, we have our own pantheon. As the tutorial here suggests, most of them do require an altar building to function to begin with. Fortunately, that won't be too difficult. If I'd played more of this game, I'd be able to tell you which one would be best for us, but I think in this case we'll just go with one that I've seen a little bit of use out of, which is the God of the Forest. We do have our first settler here, and we don't have a lot of really good choices to pick from here. I think the game is correct that these wouldn't necessarily be bad tiles to pick, although I'm kind of thinking if I'm going to pick between these two, while it's nice that we do get the fact that you can't really attack up into these mountains here, so it is good defensively, but if I settle here, I'm on a coast, which will allow me to actually build ships, and I think that's a little more important. Since within 3 tiles of our capital city here, we will be getting a second gypsum and 2 more jade. It seems reasonable that we will want a brickyard because it will bolster those benefits. And since I'm still saving this spot for something more useful, we're going to put it down right here, should be fine. We've met another civilization. This one's a little bit further away, so I guess we'll just go with a neutral greeting, since I don't have any plans to become like a huge military conqueror with very high level commanders. So everything should be fine, as long as they don't forward settle me. The AI does seem to have a tendency to decide to aggressively settle against your borders for whatever reason. Settlers arrived where we want it, so we'll set up our new settlement. The thing about these though is that they're not actually full cities as they would normally be in previous Civ titles. In this case, this is a town which will eventually need to be converted into a city for the right cost. So this means that while the town itself will grow and we can assign different tiles to it, we will not be able to actually build anything from it, and instead all of this production will be turned into gold. New narrative event. This one could have the potential to give us, what is that, +2 combat strength on warriors. So far we haven't met any civs that would want to kill us early game, so I think it's fine to still take the culture. Now I actually should have been doing something already, which is befriending an independent civilization. Oh, that's interesting. It seems like all of them are actually hostile to me. This one was probably because I settled next to it. That could be. Anyway, the main thing is, even these hostile ones you can make friendly over time. You just need to spend 170 influence and it'll start ticking up. You'll notice, of course, that they do also have different types. So we have like the economic ones over here, and then we have a military one. Would be really neat if we had a science or a culture one. Those are the best in my experience so far, but we'll take it and we'll go with, I guess, this one. They do have access to salt and gold, which are both really good. Iron also pretty decent. These do have some pretty solid resources around them, and if we wanted to at some point we could go ahead and turn them into our own towns. Since this one's in our own backyard, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. Grab another little loot box over there, so we can change another one of our civics. I think we'll go for Code of Laws. More importantly, we can swap out one of our policies for increased scout movement and sight. Finally got access to libraries. It seems maybe the difficulty I chose was more than I thought, because it seems like our opponents are absolutely destroying us. But that's alright, nothing a good strategy can't fix. We'll go ahead and put the library down over here actually, because it does have resource adjacency bonuses. So you'll see we gain additional food and science because we're adjacent to some resources. The celebration, not a lot of buildings to build, so again we'll go with the food. We do get to choose another one of these, and I feel like I'm getting a little bit behind on science. Let's grab that. Oh right, I never actually mentioned army commanders. So the way Civ 7 works is you don't have individual unit XP. So you're not trying to like build up a unit over the course of the campaign. Instead you're trying to build up these army commanders, which so far I'm kind of vibing with because they have their own unique promotion paths. If I had to guess, I'd say it's pretty much impossible to get any individual army commander down every single one of these paths. I mean, maybe it's doable. I haven't played a whole military-based campaign yet. But the benefits are pretty substantial. For example, this one allows you to pretty much attack after you have unpacked units. Packing and unpacking are these 2 buttons over here. So for example, we have an archer unit here if we wanted to, and we had movement on that actual archer itself. And then we could press this button to get the archer to pack into that army. It'll take up one of these 4 slots. You can have up to 6 at some point, and it allows units to move together as one army. The only downside is you can't really attack with these. They exist to condense units into one tile, and then you can move them around and deploy them later. I wouldn't blame you for thinking that that seems kind of pointless if you can't attack with them, but you can defend as an entire army, and also it allows you to maneuver multiple units faster than you would have otherwise. So it does have its use cases. Okay, I think I've changed my mind about these guys. I think I'm actually just going to destroy this settlement. Okay, I did mention how much I hate when the AI forward settles me, right? But I am going to forward settle the AI. A few turns later, we have a couple things to take care of. First of all, you can see that this settlement, this independent power, is no longer hostile towards us, which is nice. In 6 more turns, they'll just give me a free gift, and then by the end, we will become the suzerain of this city-state for some more permanent bonuses. In the meantime, we do have enough influence, so we should work on trying to befriend somebody else. Now, keep in mind, the AI can also do this exact same thing. So we can see over here that somebody else is already befriending Khotan. In fact, I believe that is the new civilization that we've just met, so let's go ahead and befriend Asur, and then we'll greet this new civ. We do have just enough influence for a friendly greeting, so I don't mind doing that. What's up with you, Ibn Battuta? Like Civ civilizations with the most revealed tiles dislikes the one with the least revealed tiles. Okay, weird kind of thing to be into, but we don't judge around here, I guess. They are also playing as the Axumites, which are very much more of a trade kind of civilization, so I'm sure we won't have to kill them. Oh, and what do you know, since of course we did just get the next civic research to be able to get a merchant, it also gives us a free merchant, which means we just finished 2 quests. We have a narrative choice here, one where we can either get more influence or a codex. Now, I didn't mention codices because I didn't think I'd really have to. They're not like a super big thing, although I guess, okay, we have 3 codices, we've gained a step towards the Great Library, very cool. This is the one for science. You do want to try and complete these because they are important for the next age, but again, not going to bring them up until they're relevant. More importantly, codices, they are these great works. Specifically, codices are science-based ones. I think there are different kinds, but they do have to fit to a specific slot, so because we built the library over here, we do have 3 slots for them. We'll have to build another library or something else to fit another codex. But anyway, we also get to pick another civic. I think this time we'll go with one of our unique ones, the earthworks. Not because the building improvement is necessarily the best, but instead more because we get 10% production towards constructing buildings, and that is just flat for the rest of this age. Now, funny enough, we don't actually have a large number of trade routes that we can actually go for, but at the very least, we can go with this one. It's a sea trade route that we can send from Choctaw to our friend, in quotations, maybe one day. To actually establish this trade route, though, we will have to walk into one of their tiles and establish it personally. It is kind of risky considering, you know, whole encampment right there. But since I did grab navigation, it should be possible to just go by boat. Just to give you an example, we can pack everyone into here. That puts it into this general, then this general can move up to, let's say, for example, here would probably be a pretty decent spot. Now, it is a little bit disgusting. If I were this player right now, I'd be furious, but I am going to put the settlement down right here. They've already expended all 3 of their tiles. They can't actually grow any further in this direction, which means that the gold, ivory, silk, this wonder, a second ivory, second silk, and 2 silver are going to be within range, which is kind of absurd. Ooh, here we go, another loot box. Definitely going to take that culture, even if we take a bit of damage. That's fine. With the commander, we could choose to just like drop everyone at once, but we do want to be a little bit strategic, so what we're gonna do is drop down 1 unit here, grab this unit, put it down here, grab the archers, put them here, then we move the general in towards here, and we can move this other guy next turn. For now, though, I think we'll just go ahead and, I don't know, go ahead and barrage this, actually. New civilization. Neutral greeting should be fine. These guys actually, I think, are militaristic, so we'll see. Likes leaders that leave independent powers alone, dislikes those that disperse independent powers. Yeah, I have the feeling we're not going to be friends considering, yeah. New narrative event. This one gives us an economic attribute point, but I think only if we build 3 altars. Thing is, that's kind of expensive. It will cost us money to get those altars. Not impossible, just might take a while. Definitely worth it, though. We have managed to fix the problem with our science. Not only have we caught up, but we're the highest we can see right now, although we still seem to have a problem with our culture. So, we now have access to the monument, and I've actually been explicitly saving these tiles over here for this monument. It does gain +1 culture for each adjacent mountain, and unfortunately we can't build it over a resource. Otherwise, this or this would have been really nice tiles. You'll notice that it immediately removes the farm, but guess what? We can just put that guy somewhere else. So, not a big deal. We should be able to clear this out now. Let's see. Alright, perfect. Now, it doesn't automatically get rid of it, but we get to press this button to disperse this independent nation, and that gives us 100 gold and some more XP over to our commander. Seems like as good a spot as any to build a city. Surely this will not cause any tensions whatsoever. Now that we have 3 settlements, we actually can't build another one yet. I mean, we could technically, so long as we have enough happiness in the empire, which we technically would, so it wouldn't be impossible, but don't worry, because in another 6 turns, we're doing the mastery of earthworks, which will give us another settlement limit. In fact, it's not all too difficult from my experience to get up to like 6 or 7 settlements by the end of the first age, so it's not that bad. We did gain access to our unique Mississippian improvement here, which is different from a building, but also isn't necessarily like the greatest, just kind of okay. So for example, this one tile is 3 food, 1 happiness. If we put down a pot cop, once it's done being built, it'll gain an additional food +1 money, so like it's kind of like a better farm, but only marginally. And since it's an improvement, not technically a building, it also doesn't receive the food from being next to the mountain, so it's just kind of alright. Oh yeah, we do have irrigation, so I guess I could put down another settlement somewhere. We did just get irrigation, which is quite nice. Gardens can be rather helpful, plus the hanging gardens, pretty decent. We'll go with, let's say, maybe currency. I think we're a little bit behind on civics, so we should definitely go ahead and grab this culture. Now, with earthworks done, I think it's probably worth it to maybe swap out survey. I don't think we really need that as much as we might need, for example, this. All buildings receive +1 gold adjacency for resources. That's pretty big. Finally, we can put down our first trade route. Spring Track is not a big fan of us, but putting down a trade route usually makes them a little bit friendlier. Don't remember if I've opened this menu yet, but basically you do need to actually assign resources to different cities. Towns can only actually have one resource unless you have something that modifies that, and cities have a limit based on the kind of buildings that they have. I think by default they can have 2, but if you have like a market it adds 2. Also, some goods, like camels, can actually increase the number of goods that you can send to a city, so that's cool. So in this case, we're going to have to move something from Cahokia to Homa, and then since we do want this silk for additional culture, we'll slap that in. Here we are, finally suzerain of a city. I don't think I actually have too many of these going on at the same time. Is this one, and then I think this one is the other one I'm going with. Yeah, and it seems I'm far ahead of Isabella. So when picking a bonus, it's kind of important to keep that in mind, because sure, we could get 5% gold for every city-state we're suzerain of, but that's going to be 2, so 10%, I mean, it's not bad necessarily. Now that I'm really taking a look at this, it might not be a bad idea to get the Emporiums. If an Emporium provides +2 gold and plus an additional 2 gold in cities that have at least 1 resource assigned to them, well, basically the capital right now, and that means each time I put one of these down, I get 4 gold per turn. That's not too bad. I'll at least take a look. Oh, I also didn't mention that some resources are like empire resources, which means that if you get one of them, then they count for literally the entire empire. I don't think they're stacking, they might be, but what's important about getting gold here is that it means I can actually start spending some of this gold I've been accumulating, and I can build something like a granary for far cheaper than it would have otherwise been. Next celebration, we'll go for some more food, and we'll get some more gold, of course. When it comes to city-states, I don't think I mentioned you can also have some unique interactions with them. One which is particularly good is promoting the growth of a city-state. It gives them an additional 15 food per turn for 10 turns, which is kind of enormous at the start of the game. You can see, for example, these guys are making like, what, 5 food per turn? So if we just promote them a little bit, that'll increase rather rapidly. We have been making fairly decent progress through the tech tree. I think the next good idea would be going through bronze working and then engineering, because that amphitheater has a very special tile with its name on it, and I am trailing a little bit behind in culture. I did end up building another settler a little while back, so that's why we have this one over here. And yes, I am going to forward settle another civilization. Maybe 2, depends on how far these borders reach. But it's okay, because I get like, what, 6 resources from this? I think it's worth it. We did end up getting an expansionist attribute, and I honestly do not remember why. Could be from settling a 4th city, but also could be from something else. Anyway, we get to introduce leader attributes. As you can probably figure, these are maintained throughout the campaign, even as you change civilizations, so that's one big difference. We have 1 point in expansionist, so we can get 25% additional production towards training settlers. Not that we're going to be doing too much more of that right now, but as we unlock more, they get better and better. Right, yeah, every now and then you will get the occasional eruption. Not a huge deal though, sometimes they're big, sometimes they're bad. In this case, it's pretty bad. Oh, there actually is another city-state that hasn't been influenced yet. Okay, well, in that case, I might as well be the first one. Here we go. Another milestone for the Silk Road because we have so many resources assigned now. Finally, suzerain of these guys, I think I'll go with the Federati. They are, I think, slightly better units when you compare them to warriors, C+5 combat strength. They're also cheaper to purchase, well, at least like for the first 2. They do have one other benefit though, which is that when you get more than one of them, or when you have them next to any other unit, you'll see that they get +2 combat strength for each adjacent military unit, which is pretty good. And it fits well for me because I have a lot of money and not much to spend it on. Oh, and you know what, actually, that's convenient. Since we just got silver, it makes it even cheaper to buy those Federati. Now, you can only really do so much with a bunch of towns, unless you're playing a country or a leader that specifically has a lot of bonuses for towns. So eventually you'll want to convert them into cities. And fortunately, because I've been allowing this one to grow up, it has become a lot cheaper to convert it into a city. If I wanted to, I could decide to actually turn this into a mining town. It would probably give me a lot more money, but money is not exactly the thing we're lacking right now when you compare it to, you know, the other civs. So it's probably worth it to convert this to a city. Now that it is, we can actually do stuff with it, like building monuments, gardens, libraries, etc. In fact, a monument right about here would be kind of insane, actually. +1 culture for each adjacent mountainous terrain. Isn't that convenient? Why not? Since it's a city, we can also assign it another resource. Oh right, I was building our first wonder over in the capital. It's a neat little animation they got going on. So that was the Monk's Mound, that's over here. Now, to remember what that actually does. Oh, right, +4 resource capacity in the settlement. That actually is really good. So what we can do with that is go ahead and build another merchant to do a little bit more trading, now that we actually have the spots to put resources in the capital. Okay, what do you want? Both leaders reveal each other's claimed territory over time. See, the thing is, I have enough scouts and I don't really care that much. I get money and I don't waste influence. That's a good idea. Farmers market as well? Sure, why not? Ooh, do we want to be allied with Ibn Battuta? Well, see, that kind of depends on your military strength and how likely you are to get killed. Friendly with 2 other civs, hostile with Tecumseh. Well, Tecumseh is militaristic and they have no issues with going over their settlement limit, I guess. Yeah, you know what, why not? Oh yeah, okay, come on, that's disgusting. Maybe I should destroy him. We'll see. Now we're the suzerain of this city up here as well. Gold buildings receive +1 gold for each city set you're suzerain of. That's not too bad, actually. Our current trade route range does seem a little bit limited. I think it would be kind of nice to have that extend a little bit, but there's also the opportunity for +5% gold for each city state you're suzerain of. Okay, I think at this point it actually is worth it to go for this. Might not get that much use out of it, but for the sake of being able to finish that one mission, I will go ahead and buy an altar over here. That'll give us another economic attribute point, which we can spend on getting +1 gold per age on palace and city halls. Oh, fun. Okay, so I think Trung Trak is preparing to declare war on me, because they have been decreasing our... Yeah, okay, that looks pretty obvious, to be honest. Alright, should probably do something about that. Okay, yeah, so war's been declared against us. Nice. Depending on how just the war is, there might be a sort of an imbalance to one side or the other in terms of, like, support. Oh, right, I guess they're allied to each other. Okay, so war wariness is a thing. Fortunately, I think because these are our subjects, they might help us out, although I never had to figure that out. I've never had to know whether or not they would help us, but interesting. We're having, a time. Fortunately, Isabella is not exactly the strongest. She literally has 1 city. It does have some fortifications, though, so good for her, I guess. But at the very least, it's going to be difficult for her to actually, like, break through my city-states and then get to me. So, in the meantime, all we have to do is build a couple of units and then sit back and do nothing, for the most part. Now, we do have a little bit of an edge over our enemies, and that is the fact that we are an economic powerhouse. So, since they're targeting this city, all I need to do is buy some walls. Nice. Probably worth swapping a few things out, like, for example, we don't need this, that's for sure. Let's get some production towards training infantry and ranged units, and I don't think we really need this either. So, we'll get combat strength in fortified districts. And, well, I guess this is how it's going to have to be. I would have preferred not to change this town's focus, but if we need healing for units and increased health for the walls, then it is what it is. Oh, what do you know? We can get more military production towards training all units, but -1 happiness on military buildings. Honestly, that's a good idea. I did bring over my western army to this city to see if I could maybe take it, since that would be a huge weight off my shoulders. You know, I wasn't planning for this to become my 5th settlement, but if it does, then so be it. Commanders do have these special abilities, might have mentioned them earlier, but main point is you can make all of your units attack the same thing at the same time. Most useful part of this is it just gives your units +2 combat strength during that attack. So we're gonna try to take the city, see how far we can get, or maybe we just don't coordinate. That's cool, alright, I'll do everything manually, that's alright too. We did get a promotion for this guy though, so that's nice. It has been catastrophic on both sides. We lost a unit over here, one of our archers, but we did also kill one of their units over here. In fact, we should try to do that again, but only if I can't take the city, and it seems like I can. So let's do that. Oh right, once you take a city, you're not actually done taking it. You have to deal with a unit inside too. Forgot about that minor caveat. We're making a beautiful comeback in no small part because of our unique units. The burning arrows over here, as you can see, burn the ground, which means any unit that stands in these tiles will take additional damage at the end of the turn. So this unit probably won't survive, but only if they stay there, which they probably won't. Same thing with this army commander, and just to make sure that they don't survive, we will crush them right now. I mean, look at that, a level 4, definitely valuable to destroy. Oh right, I did want to set this city up. It's weird because beforehand I'd picked this out myself, but now that I'm here, the game's telling me, oh, wouldn't this be a good idea? I know, that's why I went for it. It's important actually that it's on a coastline, because if it weren't, then we probably wouldn't be able to connect it up to our empire. And to allocate resources, you do have to do that. Unfortunately, this city is not connected to anything, at least not yet. Once I take this city, probably will. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. So for peace, you're willing to give me, well, I really wish I knew what city this was. I would say presumably the capital, but is it? Is it the capital? I don't know. But if I close this, then it rejects the peace deal. So I I don't know what city this is. Well, I'm gonna say no and then ask for the same thing. You want peace just for peace? I feel like I should destroy both of you, actually. Oh, you were gonna offer me this city up here? Yeah, of course not. I don't want that. I want your capital. Let us stuff in it. Okay, not a great time to have a flood like that because we just damaged literally half of the reinforcing army, so that's kind cool. Maybe the most inconvenient time that could have happened. At the very least, I guess we get more food out of it, but... Okay, they should have almost no units left except just the archer in the capital, so let's get all the archers into position. Actually, should be able to move you out into this tile, then you should be able to move right here. You should be able to move over by one, and you as well. Okay, one archer unit, that's actually not too bad. Okay, now we can take out that archer with this spearman. Move you up to here, actually, I think. Oh boy, another war for us to worry about. That sounds lovely, actually. Okay, see, we have good reason to go to war with Tecumseh, so I'm gonna say yes to that, actually. It's only a 3v2, what's the worst that could happen? Okay, city defenses have been destroyed. I'm gonna move you up there, Federati move here, and army commander as well. Should, in theory, actually be able to take the city this time. There we go. Now, what to do with the city? Burn it down or keep it? Probably worth keeping it. There's a lot of people in it, why not? Hey, what do you know? Another point. Let's go with expansionist, I guess. Get that growth rate in cities. Okay, you want peace. The thing is, it's a little bit awkward. We do actually have a few things we still want to do. I'm gonna use this opportunity to also just get rid of this city completely because it's in a weird place and I kinda just want the tile that's here. In fact, I feel like this city was only set up specifically to take this ivory from me, considering there's like nothing else here. And since I don't really want it taking up one of my settlement limits, I'm gonna raise that to the ground. Let's see if we can go ahead and also take this city. Okay, we destroyed all the defenses and the unit inside, but for some reason we just don't take it. Can I perhaps walk in there with the commander? No? Okay then. Never mind. Now I own that city too. That is a little bit over my settlement limit. Thing is, I don't think I actually want to burn this one down. It's not too bad, really. Got access to a couple decent things. Might as well keep it. As for you, I really don't need anything else from you, so you're free to go. Hey, hold on a second. Wait a minute. Is that a settler of a country that's trying to fight me? Now hold on a second here. Yeah, I don't think so. Right, so we do have this one thing towards the end of each age called the crisis. You can see the crisis kind of like ticks up over time along with the age progress, so now that it's 70%, we get that crisis. It ends up being a little bit of a pain, especially when you're at war, but hopefully it's not too bad. Basically, all it really means is you have to pick some of these crisis policies, and, I mean, unless the crisis itself changes between runs, every now and then you'll get these, like, basically barbarian camps, which are independent powers. Isabella wants peace? That's a shame, because I kind of want your capital, so, yeah, that's kind of awkward. Alrighty, we have quite a few codices in the Empire right now. So here's a pretty big thing about ages. When we move on to the next age, we will not be able to retain all of our units. You can have 6 units, which is not dependent on the number of settlements you have, it is just 6. And then the rest of your units will attempt to be assigned to commanders as long as you have enough commanders, and if you don't, then you don't get to keep those units, which is something. It also notes here that independent powers and city-states are unique to a given age, which means that if we don't incorporate any of the ones that we are currently the suzerain of, then they will simply disappear when the age ends, which means I'm going to have to build up enough influence to turn Hattusa into a city, because I actually really want this city. This is in fact one of the main reasons why I'm going to burn Sparta to the ground, is because they took a lot of the tiles I wanted. I'm also considering Assur if I have time for that, who knows. Anyway, we're gonna take Sparta now, and in this case I don't want the settlement, so I'm gonna burn it to the ground. Actually, you know, I have so much money I can probably turn this into a regular city. Another milestone complete for the Silk Roads. Now for the last one, we just need to slot 6 more resources. As long as we can do that before the next age, we do get a massive bonus, which we'll get to in a minute. What do you know, we got another leader attribute point. This time economic. Oh, that's pretty good. Every tech and civic mastery completed in an age. I think I've done at least 10 of these now. Yay, the crisis continues, everyone's favorite. -6 happiness in cities is actually a lot more manageable, I think. Okay, looks like the settlements are not particularly happy about the war, so either I need to wrap things up really quickly or, well, actually I can just peace out with Tecumseh. Don't really care all too much. But what would you be willing to give me? Now, if I were to ask you to give me me the 2 cities that were founded by my ally. Could I give them back? Maybe. Well, let's find out. It seems like you can't give those back, but maybe I can see what I want to do with each city. I can keep it or raise it, but I can't give it back to whoever originally owned it. Well, that's kind of unfortunate because I don't really want these cities. But if the AI is willing to give you cities, you should take cities, right? I just want to weaken them and strengthen my ally, so surely in theory I'd be allowed to give this back. Because I would like to take these and then hand them back just to weaken them, but I don't really want to keep the settlements per se. But it's in our interest to have peace with them, so I guess peace it is. I've actually changed my mind on Isabella. We've been at war for too long. Things are kind of becoming an issue, so fine, we can have peace. Hey, we got another milestone, although I don't remember actually building anything this turn. Oh yeah, the Colosseum. Oh, okay, hold on a second. Sorry. What was that? The people of Argos are terribly unhappy and are asking me to simply take over. But you see, Argos, you kinda suck, and I already have too many settlements, and I also want to claim control of this guy. So, that's a little unfortunate. Declining gives me -1 happiness in all settlements. I feel like there shouldn't be a penalty for declining. Kinda weird that saying, actually, no, accepting this city into my empire will tank all of my production. For some reason, I get a penalty for saying that. Not sure how I feel about that, but okay. In any case, I still want this city because it has a lot of resources and is very strategically located right in between me and Isabella, and it's going to disappear soon, so I will go ahead and incorporate it. It will take 10 turns, but we should be able to do that. And there we are. We finally managed to slot 20 resources, which means we finished the Silk Roads milestone. This one's actually incredibly important. In my opinion, might even be one of the strongest ones here. Because by completing this, when we go to the next age, we get these options for what we want to pick. And one of those things we can pick now is that all of our cities from the previous age remain cities, meaning we don't have to spend gold on getting them back to cities. It gives you a pretty sizable bonus at the start of the next age. Right, of course, the issues continue. -10 happiness in the capital, probably not that bad. Here we go, we've gotten Hattusa. Right on time for us to be able to grab another piece of gold here. We got our celebration, tour, buildings, whatever. It's not gonna last too long since we're almost at the end anyways. Oh, that seems great. Okay, for 3 turns, none of these are actually particularly impactful for 3 turns. I mean, even if I get half gold for 3 turns, I still make more gold than everybody else. Oh, there's no way we're doing this again, right? Honestly, I don't think I care that much. Which is what I would say if I were allowed to click any of the buttons, but I am not. Okay, I have to support them? I can't just stay neutral in this? Okay. Alright then. To make things even weirder, we still lost our alliance, despite honoring the alliance. Okay, well in that case, might as well get the alliance back. Doesn't really matter though, look at Tecumseh. 10 gold per month, barely any science, barely any culture, suffering from no happiness. I mean, even his own cities are trying to rebel from him, so not exactly looking great there. In fact, one of their largest cities actually defected to our ally, which is very funny. In fact, maybe one of the reasons why this war was started in the first place. Right, of course, this brings everyone else into war with us. Very cool. I have to say the rebellion system is a little bit annoying. Fortunately, there are only a couple of turns left in this age, but you can see just how destructive it's been for our enemies too. Every one of these tiles here, which is blackened, has been sabotaged by rebels within the city. That's what happens when your city becomes very upset. And so you can see the effect it's been having on Tecumseh and why they only have 7 gold per turn. Yeah, this does get a little bit tiring sometimes, doesn't it? Okay, so they decided to settle right next to one of my cities, and my only recourse is to capture and burn that down for a permanent debuff in every single war. That's kind of cool. That's neat. I like that. Same thing over here, actually. The AI decided this would be a nice place to settle, right on my border. I mean, to be fair, I did settle near theirs and captured 2 of their cities, but come on. As if I'm not going to burn that to the ground. Alrighty, and that's the end of the Age of Antiquity. Now, we can take a look at the age rankings. We did actually manage to finish this one in the end, and we got at least a little bit of progress on each of these ones, which means we get a whole bunch of legacy points. How nice. At the end of each age is when you gain some more experience for the leader and also just your general level. And so we get the transition to the next age where we get to pick which culture we're going to be next. There's a surprising number remember, especially when you compare them to the starting antiquity civilizations that you can choose from. Some of them we unlocked simply by being Pachacuti, like the Inca. Some we unlocked by playing as the Mississippians, like for example Hawaii, I think. Some of them we unlocked by doing specific things. For example, I think it was Ming where we had to build 5 castles or something. Majapahit I think was 3 naval trade routes. I don't remember. You can do different things to get different ones. You also get the opportunity to swap out your memento if you really feel like it. Of course, it would make the most sense to play the Inca because as the Inca you can work mountain tiles, and we have several around us, so they can become rather productive. Now, when you load into the next age, you can see immediately a couple things have changed. One, we have lost our city-state over here. In fact, all of them have disappeared. You can also see we're now at peace with everybody, so that's cool, I guess. And everyone's also changed civilizations. So Isabella is actually in charge of Spain now, Tecumseh is in charge of Shawnee, Trongtrak in charge of Majapahit, and Ibn Battuta now leads the Abbasids. One of the largest changes you'll notice though is that we're not making nearly as much science or culture as we were before. Our opponents are making a lot more, but we are no longer making all that. That's because at the start of each age, the previous warehouse bonuses have disappeared, means a lot of our productive capacity has been diminished. Personally, not a huge fan of that, because as soon as you start to build momentum, you start to feel like, well, there it all goes, I guess. Kind of makes me feel like instead of the classic one more turn, it's like, okay, now it's time for a natural break, time to stop playing kind of thing. At the very least, we do get one cool thing, which is that we get to choose our legacies. Legacies are pretty much bonuses that carry over into the next age. Do they carry over for the entire game? Well, some of them technically. Like if you get the attribute points, then those are permanent. But for the most part, I don't think so. You also get to choose one Golden Age or Dark Age legacy. Now, I don't think we have any of the Dark Age legacies. We do have the Economic Golden Age one, which is this one. All of your cities from the previous age remain cities, so we can go ahead and grab that. Takes up 2 of our points here, so we can grab one other economic one. In this case, the only real choice we have is gaining 1 economic attribute point. As for military, I'm thinking the +2 settlement limit looks pretty good as long as it remains for the rest of the game. If not, then well, that kind of sucks. We can get a cultural attribute point, +1 science for each codex in antiquity, +7 is not a particularly large amount. Although, we do have 1 extra wildcard point as well, which means we can do this and get the scientific attribute point. And then if we really want to, we can move the capital. Do I want to? I don't think it particularly matters. It's in a pretty defensible position, so we'll just keep it where it is. Although I do wish you could just rename your capital. Like for example, we can't even just like right click or even left click on that to change the name, which is kind of a shame. It's one of the things I like to do in previous Civ games. Anyway, we can go ahead and grab like say this, and we can grab another one of these. +1 gold on resources in towns is pretty decent. And for scientific, of course we'll grab that. Now with that being said, that actually is all of the gameplay that I'm allowed to show you for now. I decided to take up the full hour of the time that we have just to be somewhat thorough in our first stage. So I'm gonna go ahead, save the game, and then we're gonna have a little discussion on what I think so far. So I do have a few things that I want to mention, but keep in mind that of course the frame of reference I have for previous Civ games is mostly Civ 5. I think I played 400 hours of Civ 5 and about 80 of Civ 6. So some of these things I'm about to say might be slightly incorrect when it comes to specifically comparing it to Civ 6, or when I say previous titles and I mention something that actually wasn't Civ 6, keep in mind I just don't play Civ 6 that much. Should also think of this as more of a list of first impressions. I have played about maybe 25 hours of the game and I have not gone through all of the ages completely yet, so I wouldn't say this is exactly a review much as it is mostly first impressions. Now with that being said, let's go through the pros. First of all, it definitely feels like its own Civ title, which is a positive because when you get to something like, okay, we're on Civ 7 at this point, one of the last things you want to see is that you boot it up and you feel like you're playing Civ 5 again, right? So at the very least, I will say there's enough that's different in here to say, yes, it did warrant its own title. It is its own thing. It has its own identity. That's a positive at the least. Not least because it does have significant variety, being able to play different leaders and have different civilizations throughout the ages, which, you know, changes your play style over the course of your campaign. That's one of the big changes. You know, you can start with somebody who is expansionist economic in terms of your civilization, then maybe midway through the game you feel like, okay, let me do a little bit of conquering in the age of exploration, then you swap it up a bit for the modern age. That's something we haven't really seen before in previous Civ titles, so at the very least, it does give you a lot of variety to your runs. Not to mention the memento system, which allows you to pick a couple of unique bonuses for each age, not just for the entire game. And of course, being able to upgrade your leaders by playing them, and having a level that helps you unlock more things, it does give you a reason to come back and play the same leader, even the same variety of leader, because they did bring those back as well. Another thing that Civ has generally done pretty well that has carried over into Civ 7 is that it does make it fun to plan stuff in the game. For example, having the buildings with the different adjacencies for like having wonders or natural wonders or lakes, coasts, mountain, resources, all that stuff does make it interesting and fun that you want to plan ahead of time, you want to do well, and to a decent extent the game does help you try to figure that out by showing you the different kinds of bonuses you'll get from putting a building on a specific tile. That is pretty nice. And speaking of planning, I would like to add that the resource system does feel great. There is some room for improvement. For example, letting you know ahead of time on the map which resources are going to be empire resources, which ones are for cities, and which ones are bonuses, just to help you plan a little bit better would be nice. But other than that, the resource system itself is one of my favorite parts of Civ 7. It in fact reminds me very much of a different 4X strategy game that came out last year that I did have a lot of fun with, particularly because it has a very similar resource system, which was Millennia. Another thing that I enjoyed was that the diplomacy system, the way that they changed it for Civ 7 is somewhat of a mixed bag, but I'd say overall kind of a positive change. Using diplomatic influence for almost every interaction in the game between other civilizations or independent powers is, I think, a way to empower diplomatic civilizations, because of course if you can generate more diplomatic influence per turn, that gives you quite a significant edge over other civs, gives you something tangible, allows you to actually do more actions compared to those other civilizations if you focus specifically on trying to empower your diplomacy. So I am kind of a fan of that. Although I will say in the early game, especially during the Age of Antiquity, a lot of your focus feels like it's supposed to be more on the city-states and independent powers because they give you bonuses which regular diplomacy with other civs just don't. For example, the unique improvements or the unique units, or sometimes you can also get entire advancements or civics every time you become the suzerain of another city-state. So the city-state bonuses do seem powerful enough that they somewhat dissuade you from interacting with the other civilizations, at least in my experience. So in some part good, some part bad, it's kind of dependent on your perspective. And finally, for the pros, I really did enjoy the fact that they added the masteries and also unique civics for your civilizations. It adds just a little bit more flavor and gives you a little bit more to research. And in terms of masteries, I mean, they have good combos. It's optional research, you don't have to take it, but if there's something you really need or would really be helpful for whatever you're trying to do, then you can grab that. And I'm a fan of giving the player more options rather than forcing them to go down every single kind of research there is. But now, unfortunately, we do need to talk about the cons. There are a few things that ruined my experience the first time I booted up a game of Civ 7. One of those is that the AI tends to be very aggressive with its settling. In fact, I can give you an example. So this is another one of my test runs playing as Pachacuti, as the Mississippians into Inca, as you can see. Now, up here we have Caesar, and their capital was actually Waset. They moved it to Baghdad, but originally it was Waset. That was their first city. You want to guess what their second city was? It wasn't Thejenu, it was not Baghdad, it was Baghdad. It was right here, right next to my capital. And all the way back in the start of the campaign, all of this over here was completely empty, which is why I went ahead and settled here, here, and here. All of it was empty, but Caesar, for some reason, decided it would be a really great idea if he went ahead and just slapped down a settlement right there. That was after my second settlement, which was over here in Alabama. So I had this city here, and Caesar was like, yeah, it would be a really great idea if I just put one right there. I'd say the AI does like to test my patience quite a bit because that wasn't the only thing that happened. As you can see down here in the east, we have another city that was settled. Do you want to guess which order this was settled in? Well, this belongs to Harriet Tubman, and her capital was over here in Axum. You want to guess what her second settlement was? It wasn't this one. It wasn't that one. And it also wasn't either of these. That's right. It was this one right here. That was 2 forward settles by 2 different AI, just for the heck of it. And the thing with Civ 7 is that for you to have like a legitimate war, first you need to ruin your relations with the other AI and then go to war, because if you don't, if you declare a surprise war because somebody forward settled you and that made you pretty angry, which reasonable reaction, then they get a significant war bonus and your economy is tanked. And typically speaking, when you declare war on an AI, they are much less willing to peace out with you. So in another test run I had the exact thing happen where, again, it was actually Harriet Tubman. When went ahead and forward settled me, I got pretty annoyed at that, so I declared war immediately, took the city, started sieging their capital. I was starting to get a lot of war exhaustion. The happiness was going down in my cities, things were not looking good, and even surrounding their capital, they still would not peace out, even if I wanted to give them 3 of my cities. For some reason, the AI is just very resistant when you are the one declaring war on them. Maybe it's not consistent, but that's what ended up happening to me, so I figured whoever blinks first is the one who loses. You want to be defending, not attacking most of the time, unless you have overwhelming military might. Speaking of military, there are about 3 things I'm not a huge fan of. One is that commanders are a little bit finicky. For some reason, you cannot deploy one of your units on top of your commander, only next to your commander, which is kind of weird considering you can move your commander in with your other units. They are not the same as an actual like infantry or ranged unit. They're like a special type of unit. So I'm not really sure what the reason is why you can't just deploy on top of the commander. It would be really nice for stuff like deploying ranged units especially. I just found that it's more annoying than anything else. Another thing is that I found when you have a commander that is 1 tile away from one of your infantry units or something, and your infantry decides to attack and defeat an enemy unit, for some reason it seems that if you don't end the combat within radius of your commander, then your commander does not receive the XP for that. Which means if you successfully defeat an enemy and your commander is like 1 tile behind your infantry, which of course makes sense, you want to keep them safe, then they actually receive no XP for defeating that enemy unit, which is just a little bit of a nitpick, but it is kind of annoying. Finally, when it comes to military, you have absolutely no kind of dockyard or shipyard in the Age of Antiquity. I think in the Age of Exploration, about midway into the tech tree, you do manage to get a shipyard, which allows you to build military vessels, even if your city itself is not actually coastal. But that creates a weird dynamic where you can either settle coastal in the early game to make sure you have access to building naval units, even though they're not like typically incredibly useful, but still, depends on the map of course. Or you can just settle inland and then wait for an age and a half, and then you can start building military units. When it comes to the Age of Exploration, you definitely want to have at least 1 or 2 coastal cities. It's pretty much mandatory to keep your advantage over the AI, but the fact that you can't build those shipyards until the Age of Exploration is kind of annoying to me. It also makes it annoying because if you want to connect up your trade in your empire, then again, you don't have shipyards until later in the game, so you need to basically have a coastal city if you want to settle anywhere that's not like within a couple tiles of your other cities. Again, when it comes to warfare, I'd say that the happiness penalty is a little bit aggressive. Like even if somebody else declares war on you and gives themselves an advantage during that war, you get a pretty sizable happiness penalty, and if it dips below even 0, then you can start having rebellions. Pops can start sabotaging a lot of your tiles, and if you don't make a whole bunch of money, then that gets really expensive to fix. And it might have just been something with the Age of Crisis, but if you just have like 1 settlement that has -1 happiness, and it's at -1 happiness for 9 turns, then it will rebel from you. Kind of weird. So you have to like constantly fight back and forth with rebels to try and like repair stuff to maintain your production, which will allow you to continue rebuilding all the other problems that are happening with your civilization. I did showcase towards the end of the Age of Antiquity, the AI was heavily struggling with dealing with all those rebels. And I mean, it is the Age of Crisis. It isn't supposed to be easy. But I do feel as though the threshold for a city or a settlement trying to rebel away from you should maybe be a little bit higher. You do get the automatic penalties to your production at negative happiness, but maybe at something like -10, -15, that's when your city will try to rebel from you. Otherwise, it seems like you're really struggling to keep them in the end. Another little nitpick is that I think the building UI could be a little bit better. For example, you can go into your cities and see what buildings you have, but if you hover over them, they don't actually tell you what they do. They don't have the description. So you have to just go into the Civipedia itself and look up the building to see what it does. I feel like you shouldn't have to do that. On top of that, I feel like when you're putting down a building that has unique adjacencies, particular for that building, then those adjacencies should be highlighted on the map to let you know, hey, these are the ones associated with this building. If you see any other bonuses on a different tile, that's probably because you have something unique to your civ or your leader. For example, when playing Pachacuti, any building near a mountain gains food. So when you're putting down a building, you see, oh, I'm going to get, a couple of food from putting it down on this tile, but that's not because of the building you're putting down, it's just because that's for every building. So it would make planning just a little bit easier, in my opinion. Speaking of building, actually, there is one thing that exists in the Age of Exploration and onwards, which is called overbuilding, where you can replace a previous building with a new Exploration Age 1, which you will pretty much always want to do for another reason we'll get to in a second. The problem with it is that you don't actually get to choose which building you're going to build over. So urban districts can have 2 buildings, of course, and if you have 2 buildings in a district and you want to overbuild in that district, it's going to get rid of one of those buildings. Which one? Well, flip a coin. That's the annoying part. If you want to plan which building you're going to build over to make sure you're maximizing whatever thing you're trying to optimize for, that's too bad. The game will decide what you're going to build over, and you just have no influence over that. Now, finally, we need to get to the elephant in the room. That is the ages themselves. I have to say, not a really big fan. See, one of the experiences that I really like in the previous Civ titles, especially Civ 5, is your ability to basically build planes while your enemies build archers. If you have a significant enough bonus, if you plan accordingly, then you can overtake the AI by leaps and bounds, and that feels great. It feels great to know all of your hard work is paying off, things are going great. Civ 7 though, you get to the end of the age, the crisis ends, everyone's set back to the same starting place. Not completely, you keep your cities or you keep your settlements at the very least, and that is something. But when we're talking about a series that is famed for its tagline, or the famous line, which is just one more turn, and then you finish an age and you're like, well, I kind of feel like a lot of the things I did previously are now for nothing. It kind of kills your motivation for that just one more turn kind of idea. Whereas, for example, I could totally play an entire game of Civ 5 and not even notice the time go by. In Civ 7, I get to the next stage and I'm like, well, now it feels like I want to stop. You know, all of my adjacency bonuses are erased. All of that planning I did has been erased. Now I need to do new planning, which isn't necessarily too bad in and of itself, but it does kind of kill your motivation a little bit, at least personally for me it does. And it's also knowing that no matter how big of an advantage you actively try to get in terms of technology and civics, at the start of the next age, all of the AI basically just catches up to you for free. Now, I mean, if you're having a bad game, that can feel great for you, but if you're having a good game, it feels like a bit of a punishment almost. Like you went in, did all that effort, got way ahead of the AI, and guess what? Now we're all on the same level again. Now it's back to square, not completely square one. Again, you do keep the settlements, that's a bonus. Plus the things you accomplished in the first age, you do get in terms of legacies. So there is some form of continuing your power base from the first stage. But those first few turns when you start the next stage, I have to say, do feel like the worst. But those first few turns at the start of the next stage, I have to say, are the worst turns in the game. It goes from being like one more turn to, okay, that's enough turns for today. I'll get back to this tomorrow. With that being said though, thank you very much for watching this very long preview for Civilization 7. Thank you again to the people at 2K for giving me early access and allowing me to make this preview video. I will be playing a lot more Civ 7 over the coming weeks to see if I can change my impressions of the game, understand more of it, and eventually maybe when I'm allowed to stream it, I might do 1 or 2. So if you're new here and you want to see more of my coverage for Sid Meier's Civilization 7, make sure to go ahead and subscribe and maybe turn on the notifications so you don't miss when I drop another Civ 7 video. But for now, thank you for watching. This is Corbett signing off, and as always, have a fantastic day. I'd like to give a special thank you to the patrons for this month, especially those in the Admiral tier: Erica, Baby Cal, Born to Dunk, Le Quebecer, Nick Steffel, and Cubrute. Those in the General tier: AG Forero, Ben Mottram, Quiet Guy, Rosset, and Torvald. Those in the Prince tier: Ambient Cyan, James Levy, and Luke78776, and in the Emperor tier: Robert. Not only do these people help keep the channel going, but they also receive early access to videos for as low as $1 per month. The Patreon link is in the description.